It's not my fault. It's your fault. If my family would just get off my back, I'd be able to stop drinking. But no, they don't leave me alone. They keep asking for things. They keep telling me to do stuff. They keep riding me about all this stuff, and I can't get a moment of peace. So of course I'm going to drink. But it's not even my fault. If my family would just do what I want them to do, I'd be able to live a sober life. Does this sound familiar? This is exactly where I found myself about 8 years ago, where everything was not my fault. And the reason I drank was because of you, and because of my uncle, and my aunt, and my grandpa, and my grandma, and everyone on God's green earth. They all gave me the excuse to drink because I didn't understand a few fundamental things. And these fundamental things have helped me get sober. And the first thing was about taking personal responsibility. And welcome to our Thursday live stream, where we're going to help you, hopefully, stay sober on Thanksgiving in a way that I learned to stay sober for the last 8 years of Thanksgivings, and how Terry stayed sober for the last couple years, or 8 years. Are we on 7 or 8? I have a cold, so I can't count. 7 years of sober Thanksgivings.
So, that's good when you start to lose track.
It is, yes. And it reminded me of the movie Liar, Liar with Jim Carrey, where he goes, 6 acts of indiscretion, and she goes, 7 acts of indiscretion. But we got to understand this, because when I was trying to get sober, the reason I couldn't get sober is because it was everyone else's fault. I wasn't able to take personal responsibility and understand what's going on. And I would go to Thanksgiving and get in an argument about the latest politics, which, you know what's funny? I don't know if you noticed this, but I've had a lot of political arguments at Thanksgivings. I've had a lot of religious arguments, but not one damn mind has ever been changed. Not one. No one cares. They just want to share their opinion. And we're going to talk about some of the things that we've learned and some of the things that'll help you stay sober if you focus on them. Because I was in the pit of despair of not being able to understand that I had a part in it. And maybe my part wasn't, I got up and argued and I was a mean person. Maybe my part was just that I had a part in it. Just simply that I was there. Simply that I bought into the social norms that you have to stand your ground and you have to share your opinion, and my opinion's important. But as I got sober, I learned, what does it matter if you have a disagreement? What does it matter if this person thinks this? Is it really worth drinking over? And today we're going to talk about how to live a grateful and thankful life that you don't have to drink over. And I think this is very important. And we're going to open the dialogue, because I know a lot of you guys are going to family and friends, and there's going to be booze poured, and there's going to be triggers, and there's going to be all this stuff. And sometimes in life, we have to take care of ourselves by not going where a trigger is going to be that we know we're not ready for, or not engaging in a topic that's going to get us excited. I remember the first couple years sober, I came down, I moved to Florida, and we were going to go see family, and there was a family, and, you know, I come from, like, a loud family. Like, you could hear us, probably back in California. I'm sure Terry hears our conversations here in Florida and Alabama. They're loud people. And they don't agree with me on a lot of things, because I'm like that weird guy in the corner who's all sober and whatever. But a lot of my family's sober now, which is cool. But I learned that I can bow out of a topic. I don't have to engage. So, welcome. I'm going to try my best to stay focused. I got a little bit of a head cold coming on. Terry, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I do not have a head cold. I got my booster shot yesterday. I thought I'd be sick, but no, I'm not. I'm good. Anyways, family. Yeah, when I was drinking those last few years, family was not that much of a factor, because I'd driven everybody, including my family, out of my life. And for any of you that are still drinking, maybe that's the case with you as well. And I actually did not like the holidays a whole lot. And it wasn't because of bad memories or anything like that. For me, it was a matter of I wasn't able to be as drunk as I wanted to be, because I had to go see people that, I got invited to this place for Thanksgiving. I live 900 miles away from the family I grew up with. So I get invited to somebody's house. That meant I couldn't drink as much as I wanted to. I had to sober up. So that was my main reason for not liking the holidays.
Mm.
But those family arguments and disagreements that Marcus is alluding to, they're definitely there. And like my family's small. It was my mom, dad, and my brother and myself. Now it's just my brother and myself. My brother has different political views than me, and they're not wildly different, but they're different enough to. But what I've learned in sobriety, and he's a very opinionated person for many things, and I've just learned to just say, okay, all right, because I'm not going to change his mind. Like Marcus just said, I'm not going to change his mind at all. And yeah, I just stay much happier when I don't engage and just say, yep, yep, I hear you. I don't have to agree. I just kind of move along and not worry about it. Try and change the subject, and that's kind of what I do. I'm dealing with the different opinions and things, and I talk to a lot of people every day. A lot of people that are in recovery, and I get those opinions and things like that too. And that's one good thing about hanging out with people like that is there's a lot of different types of people, and it teaches me that patience and tolerance of others because pretty much all these people I spend time with, I love them all. They're great people. They just have different views on certain things, and some of their things, irritate me a little bit, and I'm able to move on from that. And that's really what I try to do is just move forward smoothly. I did want to say up here, Mew Mew, if that's how I pronounce it, congratulations on 5 days. That's huge. And keep it up. This is hard. And Ben, 4 for you. And where was it? Gribbs got 105. So awesome.
And L. Davis, he's going to have a year tomorrow. So congrats, L. That's awesome. And I
Yep.
think it's interesting because one of the things that I look at, I have like a philosophical brain that doesn't understand philosophy, but I like to pretend I do, which makes me sound smart, but I'm actually not. I just sound like it. So don't be fooled. But, I think about things in a different way. And one of the things I think about is, sometimes I had been where I couldn't go to Thanksgiving or a family event or something I really wanted to go to. And it's interesting because when you're not there, you can't get in the arguments and it doesn't matter. Like nothing matters. If you didn't go to Thanksgiving today, people would miss you, whatever, fine, but that would be the end of it. We tend to think that it's a big deal, right? We're kind of like the Tasmanian devil, and when we go into family events, we need to be seen, we need to be heard, and we need to be acknowledged, and we're also like doing that tornado through all the booze if we're alcoholics still. And we don't understand that there's no difference between if we're there or not there in terms of the mattering of the topic. Other than, okay, maybe you'll get in a fight and not talk with someone for a year. It happens all the time in my family. I don't know why. It's like, I'm really not going to talk to you because you disagree with me. That's the fundamental, like, we should thank them. We should thank people who disagree with us because that makes us more firm in our own beliefs, which is funny, but we do the opposite. And I believe it's because we're so insecure about our own beliefs that we have to have other people come to our way of thinking. And it's funny because you look at different religions in the world, and some of the religions that are like sturdy in their foundation, like Buddhism, they don't really care what other people do. They're just doing their own thing, right? They're not out there on pulpits. They're not out there. But some of the other religions that are a little less secure, they're like, we need to convert everyone to our way of thinking because, that's how we're going to be proven right is by everyone believing us. And it's kind of the same way in our own way, in our own means. That's why we're comfortable around other alcoholics because we understand each other and we agree with each other on a lot of things. And once we get outside of that comfort zone, now what? And what we want to do here on Talk Sober is teach you how to do the now what, right? It's all easy water skiing behind the boat because the boat makes that firm water that you are steady on. But once you go outside the wake of the boat and you're on the soft water where the boat hasn't touched, you're wobbly and you're like, what am I going to do? I lost my footing. I feel insecure, but it's also the greatest thing in the world, right? You feel free. And that's what alcoholism and recovery is like, right? You can be behind the boat all you want. You can be secure, but we want to teach you to live sober on the uncertain ground. And what I've found is the key to living sober on the uncertain ground is to have your own world in your head of your life philosophy and what you believe. What do I believe about life? Well, if I go in to talk to family and I believe something about life, like, oh, my beliefs are not that strong, or I'm a delicate little alcoholic that you shouldn't mess with, or whatever. If these are my beliefs, I'm going to go in there set up for failure because everyone's got to coddle me, everyone's got to understand me. But if I go in there, and this is why we talk about this on this channel so much, if I go in there and I say, you know what, alcohol's off the table for me, and I don't owe anyone an explanation as to why. Or alcohol is off the table for me because I'm an alcoholic. End of story. I don't owe anyone any other explanations. I didn't get sober for the people around the table. I got sober for me. And if you got sober for other people, I don't know how strong that is, but you got to get sober for you. You need to understand that sobriety is in and of itself, it's kind of a selfish thing, right? They say you need to get selfish to get sober. Yes, you do. Because us alcoholics, we're like, okay, I'm going to listen to everyone else. I'm going to deal with everyone else. And the way I take care of myself is by drinking. Okay, well, that's selfish in and of itself. I think we need to realize that everything we do in life is selfish. Even when we go give money to people, it's a great thing, but we do it so we feel better.
So we feel
like,
better.
Let's face it, I wouldn't do it if I didn't feel good about it.
Yeah.
So once we understand that and we're like, okay, I think the basis, and hopefully I'm making sense. I don't know, in my, Dayquil brain, this makes sense, but, to you guys, maybe not. We need to understand that all the things that we believe and all the stuff that we believe about ourselves, we have these pillars. And sometimes in life, an alcoholic gets knocked off those pillars. For me, like, they were knocked off. They were like hit by a truck and I was flying around, metaphorically, right? And I was off balance. And that was the greatest thing, because then I realized that everything that I had built in my life is a house of cards, and everything now is still a house of cards. You guys look at me and people are like, Marcus, you're so grounded and wise. And yeah, it's still a house of cards. But the difference is now I realize it. Now I realize I can be wrong. Sometimes I need to be shut up. Sometimes I need to learn a lesson. Sometimes I need to be humble. Sometimes I need to be proud. And I can forgive myself and understand that I'm human. And understand that every human is susceptible to chemical reactions. Right? You wonder why you get all discombobulated when you fall in love with someone? It's chemical. Your brain creates a chemical and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in love. It's like a moth to a flame. You can't even help it. And you think you got these rational... No, you're chemical. That's what it is. It's 100% chemical. And you wonder why every time you pick up and drink, something happens. It's chemical. What are your thoughts on that, Terry?
Well, I want to go back to getting sober for your family a little bit, or for somebody else. Jade said I got sober for my mom at first, but once I accepted I was an alcoholic and saw the sober side of life, it was easier to do it for myself. And yeah, I kind of agree with you, Jade, that as far as, yeah, a lot of us will get sober for the other person, for somebody else, but that's just a catalyst. And Marcus was explaining it pretty well, and I'll try my version. But like, I don't have kids, but I've heard a lot of people. I couldn't handle the way my kids were looking at me. They looked at me, or they said, kids are so honest. They said, "You smell like alcohol," or something like that. That just crushed the person, or crushed me, or whatever. And then you may get sober. That may be the catalyst to get you sober. But really, if you really look deep down into it, it is. If my kid was to say that to me, I'm getting sober because it makes me feel bad. Yes, I'm getting sober for the kid, but yes, I'm getting sober for me because I want my kid to have a better life. I don't want to be that terrible parent or the terrible spouse or whatever. That was sort of a catalyst for me, but really, as far as getting sober because somebody is telling me to get sober, you need to get sober. You need to stop. I don't like your actions. You got You got in trouble with the law. You need to stop. None of that stuff stopped me. That's for sure. I had to get sober for myself. And I love that analogy that you were just saying, the water ski analogy. That's a good one. And that's true because, I see it in the rooms, in the recovery rooms all the time. We got this safe space. Or when we were in rehab, Marcus and I were in rehab, there's no alcohol there. We're hanging out with a bunch of people that, I want to say are trying to get sober, but some are there just to, get people off their back. But either way, everybody's there with the common goal of getting sober. And it's easy to not drink, but then we get out in the real world. And for me, I started drinking when I came out of rehab because I was out in those rough waters and I didn't have the tools to deal with them. And that's what we try to do here is trying to give you those tools so that you're not going to keep drinking. And that's what we're trying to do here is when we can have some tools to fall back on, it helps immensely. Marcus is talking about that house of cards and that that he's still living on it. And so am I. We're living on this house of cards, but we recognize it. And it may not be, I'd like to say it's okay if that house of cards falls down. Maybe not, but at least we know how to deal with it without picking up the drink and then burying that house of cards that just fell. We pick up that drink, we're going to bury that house of cards, and it's just things are just going to get worse and worse. They're not going to get better. We're not going to be able to rebuild it. So we have to get these tools to live life in a better way and handle these situations. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And I think the key is to realize that, inside the house of cards is a sober person. That's my house, right? My home is being sober. If I'm drunk, I'm not home. And it doesn't matter how many cards or how many stories or how big my house of cards is. What matters is the fact that the fundamental change in my life is I said, no more alcohol. Because I was able to say that alcohol is what's causing this. Every time my house of cards was knocked down, it's because of alcohol. Now I live sober and the house of cards is okay, and I'm like, okay, everything's okay. Sometimes bad happens, sometimes good happens, but no matter what, I'm sober. And I think it's interesting because Sprout says, I've been obsessing about comments of why I'm not drinking all week. My daughter's boyfriend, who is also sober, actually pointed it out to the whole table and embarrassed the F out of me. And I can see how that would be embarrassing. But again, let's look at the root of embarrassment. We have a fundamental issue where it's embarrassing to not be able to drink. Let me say that again. We have a fundamental issue in our society where it's embarrassing to not drink, which is funny. Talk about a house of cards. The house of cards here is a bunch of people that think that alcohol's okay, and for a lot of people it is. For alcoholics, it's not. And we get embarrassed by the fact that we can't drink, when in fact, it's not an embarrassing thing. Chemicals affect people different. Like if I gave you, if your doctor said, hey, you need to take this, cholesterol med, and you broke out in hives, the doctor wouldn't be like, you're a wuss. Seriously, bro? You can't take... All these people take cholesterol medicine and they're fine. They don't get hives like you silly hive person. No, they'd be like, oh, okay, well, let's switch you to this other brand, right? So why is alcohol any different? It's a chemical. Bodies respond to chemicals differently, right? Like the angry drunk, the happy drunk, the sad drunk. It's not a personality. It's a chemical thing. Without the chemical, they wouldn't be that way. Oh, well, alcohol accentuates what you are. No, that's not true. People who saw me was like, you're a happy, fun guy. I got drunk. I was the most sad, depressed person you'd ever meet who didn't want to be around anyone. So much for... Maybe it accentuated so much happiness that I had to be sad. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that wouldn't have happened. Like, as soon as I started being sober, I was like, I'm actually kind of happy. I'm actually kind of okay. All the shit in my life was because of alcohol. And now I'm embarrassed because I can't drink it or don't want to drink it. Screw that. You're strong. You chose to not drink. I think as alcoholics, there's this fundamental thing of like, oh, poor me. I need to admit I'm an alcoholic, which is weak, and oh, I can't. Screw that. I'm strong because I say I'm not going to drink because I see what it does to me.
Right.
That's my strength. I take my strength back. Now, am I leaning on the strength to keep me sober and all? No. I'm outside. I'm on the water that's not holding me up behind the boat. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have the tools yet. But I know, no matter what, if a buoy's in the way or there's a gator in the water because I went water skiing in Florida, I'm going to deal with that when I come to it. But you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to drink even if my ass falls off. And funny thing about our pride, my pride, I was talking about my family, and I have a loud uncle. And I always, as a kid, when you're a kid and you're little, like when I was a kid and I went into high school, when I first met my wife, I was like, here's a picture of me going into high school. She's like, are you sure you weren't going into third grade? And I'm like, well, I was about the size of a third grader. I was really little. I was probably 4'8" when I went into high school. I was tiny. And, you're dealing with men who are 16 feet tall, right? And so I was little. And when you're little and you have an uncle who's loud and talks about bar fights and stuff, you're like, okay, watch out for that guy. But it's funny because as an adult, I carried that with me. I was like, okay, watch out for that guy. And then recently I went on the motorhome trip with my dad, and I'm like, man, I'm a little worried about this because the loud uncle is the one who's driving the RV. So it's loud uncle, me, and my dad. Little worried. I put that aside, and I was like, you know what? He's sober now. He's got his family. Whatever. Last time I saw him, we got into a little bit about Trump, but nothing big. He had his opinions. I had my opinions, and that was the end of it. But I had gone into this situation thinking this is going to be difficult. Funny thing about it, he's like on the top list of my uncles now. We had a great time. We were singing, we were laughing, we were having a great time. We talked about politics. We had disagreements. And I was like, wow, this is really good that two people could be like, hey, we were worried about this situation because we were carrying all this old stuff, but it ended up being great. And I think where we can meet is in the humility of, I can be wrong, you could be wrong, I don't know, I don't have the answers, but you know what we're doing? We got a common goal, and that's getting your brother, my dad, to Alabama because he's sick and he wants to see his family. And I think that's what we can do is look for the common goal. And that's what's funny. This is a funny thing. And then I'll turn it over to Terry because this might be a little long. But the funny thing is, when we look at politics, I actually did an experiment because it's fun because when you're sober, you get to do experiments. You get to be like, I wonder what would happen if I said this, right? Because I know I'm not going to drink, so I'll just deal with it sober, which is fun. And I'll go in, and I remember one time I was arguing with a different uncle of mine about politics. And this is the uncle who he eats dinner, goes and watches Fox News, and I'm like, nobody cares about the news. It's a holiday. We're here to hang out. We don't want to watch the news. And by the way, cable news is talk shows. It's not news. It's just talk shows. That's what it is. And you wonder where we learn to argue. They're always arguing on the news. So that's why we argue about politics. They taught us to do that. It's division. But I sat with my uncle. We'll call him Uncle Fox Boy. He likes Fox. And I was like, hey, bud. He's like, oh, who are you voting for? I'm like, let's talk about that later. First, I want to talk about this. Do you think that, families should be fed? He's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, do you think that the wealthy are not paying enough taxes? Oh, yeah. Do you think that this should be this? Do you think that? And I'm like, surprise, we agree. And he was like, wait a minute, we agree? Aren't you one of them liberals with horns coming out of your head kind of people? And I'm like, well, I'm liberal in my views that I think we should progress. Am I liberal like I belong to a network? No, I don't belong to anyone. I choose my own thoughts and, stuff like that. And I'm like, the funny thing is we actually agree on this, and we found common ground, and we agreed on things. And where if we talked about one party versus the other party, we would have argued. And we can find common ground. One of the things that's beautiful about family getting together that I love and I think Terry probably shares this since he's a chef, or maybe not, I don't know, is the ability to come together and have the ritual or the process of making a dinner for everyone. Common ground. Let's put a good meal on the table. And I like doing that because I grew up in a place where if Terry saw the way my family cut turkey, he would just be like, Marcus, I'm going to leave. You don't butcher a turkey like that. Poor turkey. But anyway, go ahead. I'm done with that rant.
Boy, you made me think of all sorts of things. But okay, the family hanging out together and cooking a meal. Today, what I get to do, and notice I say get to because I get to do this because I'm sober, is I've already gone out and put out, I don't know, 150, 200 pastries for these meetings. It's called an alcothon in our neighborhood, in our area, and there's going to be like 16 meetings in a row, and we got food, and I've been doing the food for all the holidays for 7 years now. And so I went there and cut these giant pastries. I cut them into quarters and stuff and put them out. And I'm coming back here to talk to you guys. I'm going to go back and start cutting turkey and ham. And, the thing that's the most fun about that is all the people. I didn't ask anybody for help because I never need to. I brought 7 knives with me. And when I get back there, people are going to come in. I'm not even going to have to ask people. They're going to come in. Do you want me to help you? Yeah. You want to cut some turkey? Yeah. You want to cut some ham? You want to cut tomatoes? You want to cut this? I'm going to get all this help because and these are people of all different walks of life. I don't know what half of them do for a living or what their living situation is or anything. We have one common goal. We're trying to stay sober. We're trying to enjoy Thanksgiving and just being able to hang out with people. There's something huge that's just great about that. And it's fun, and it's fun to be able to organize this stuff every year, and that's what I do. But also, very important, I make sure that I have time for my family here as well. I mean, my wife and I have discussed it and all that, and we've discussed that it's how I'll spend time. I'm gonna budget my time. I'm not gonna go there all day and spend all day there. I'm going to come home and relax and hang out with her and walk the dog and stuff like that and try and get our cat to stop meowing. Our cat's too fat, so we took his food away, her food away, and now she's meowing. You haven't heard it yet. But anyways, it's the family thing. It's great. And, I wanted to talk about Sprout real quick because you had mentioned the obsession about people judging you, especially when you were called out in front of everybody. And that happened to me, actually. I was, I don't know, in my first year of sobriety, same thing. And yeah, it was embarrassing until I realized that it's not embarrassing. And it was just that simple. It's just, why am I worried about what other people think about me not drinking? Mm-hmm. And any other time since then, I have not had an embarrassing moment for the fact that I don't drink since then. Even when people have said, hey, have a beer, take a shot, whatever. I don't have those experiences anymore. It just doesn't happen. And because I say, no, thanks. And if they're shoving it in my face, no. No, because nowadays I have confidence in the way I act. I'm not living a life that I need to run from or hide from. So I can say no with conviction, and people understand that. And I'm just not going to bow to that peer pressure. And I know it can be hard on like a Thanksgiving when your entire family is drinking and you're the only one not, or one or two people aren't, or whatever. But, there's tools you can use. There's things like I'm sure if you're sober and you're newly sober, well, hopefully you have somebody that you can contact that knows that you're sober, or maybe there's somebody with you that knows you're sober, or something like that you can call in the middle of the situation and just step out and call them and say, hey, I'm having a tough time here. Everybody's drinking. They're all getting hammered. What should I do? Maybe they can give you some advice. Or if you're going to the Thanksgiving dinner and everybody's going to be drinking and they're going to get sloshed, maybe you need to make sure you have your own transportation so you can leave. One of the things I do for parties or whatever, because we're going into that party season, and I don't know how many people are going to be having the parties, but there is going to be some, I'm sure. But you show up on time. That's what I do. I show up on time now, not fashionably late, on time. And then you can tell when people start to get hammered. That's you can tell when the voices start getting louder. Usually you're able to notice before people start dancing on the tables, but you know that's when it's time to leave. And when you leave, you don't say goodbye to everybody. You go say goodbye to your couple of close friends, the host of the party. All right, we got to go now. Got to go let the dog out or whatever it is. You don't even need an excuse really to leave. You say thank you very much for a nice evening. We're going to take off. We're tired. Whatever. And that's what I do. That's a key, is being able to have that escape route for these situations and these family events. This is why we do this Alcothon, for Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, St. Patrick's Day, 4th of July. Did I miss any? I think those are the main ones. But anyways, that we do that so people can get away. And it's a great way to get out. And hopefully you guys have a plan for today to stay sober. That's what you need.
Absolutely.
Think about it before you go.
And I think, too, touching on what Sprout says, when I got sober, I had what's known as internal embarrassment. I was embarrassed for myself that I was an alcoholic and that I couldn't drink anymore. Everyone around me was pretty supportive. Like, they were like, hey, you went to rehab and, you don't drink anymore. That's cool. But I still had this internal embarrassment. And I think that comes from society. And I want to address that, because internal embarrassment is like anxiety. Nobody knows you have it. No one cares. You're the only one living with it. And this internal embarrassment is interesting because we go places, and like that instance where, the whole family drinks like a fish except for my daughter and her boyfriend, which is what Sprout's saying. Why would he make it an issue? Well, is it an issue or is it not an issue? And I want to point something out very important. I want you to take the next 90 seconds, 90 seconds, and I want you to remember what you did Thanksgiving 2013. I honestly can't remember. I can't even remember where I was. I don't remember what was said. I don't remember what happened, unless it was a monumental one, like an anniversary of the first Thanksgiving, or whatever. But chances are you probably don't remember. And chances are people don't remember that big embarrassing moment you had. Like, I remember years ago when I started doing YouTube for my other business, and I met a buddy that I had gone to high school with. And we had our issues, and, I thought a certain way about him. He thought a certain way about me. And we got to talking after 20 years, and he had told me, he's like, what's funny, in high school, I kind of envied you. And I was like, who? You? It was a guy behind me? You envied me? Because, I thought you just didn't like me. And he's like, no, I was actually jealous of you and this and that. And I'm like, wow, I would have never thought that, because I thought that you thought that I was, whatever. And it was actually the opposite. And I think the same thing happens with family, where we might think, oh, they think this. And we spend so much of our time. I remember there was one talk, the AA speaker tape that was good. I used to listen to this one. And he's like, alcoholics are the kind of person that your boss will call you and be like, hey, I need to talk to you. And you'll go in the bathroom and sit and think about what he's going to talk to you about for the next hour and a half. And then you'll go talk to him. And then after you talk to him, you got to go back and think about what he just talked about for another hour and a half. So you just spent practically your entire day thinking about what this guy was going to say, and then thinking about what this guy said, instead of just actually being present and listening to what he said. Like, that could have been solved in 2 minutes. And it reminds me of this old Zen story, where there's these two Zen monks, and they're walking along in the desert, because apparently that's where monks hang out. They just hang out in the desert, right? And they're coming here, and they get to this river, and there's this lady there, and she's got a basket, and she's putting her toe in the water, and she's kind of afraid to cross the river, and she's like, what am I going to do? And so one of the monks sees her, lifts her up, holds her basket, carries her across the river, sets her down, says, thanks, ma'am, have a nice day, and the monks go along walking. About an hour after they had been walking past that river where they helped, or he helped the lady, the other monk, he's ready to explode. Because in the last hour, he has had this conversation in his mind about, oh my God, do you know what you did? Monk rule 57 says don't touch a woman. Monk rule 58 says this. And he's ready to explode, and he turns to his monk friend, and he's like, do you know how many rules and laws you broke of the monk code helping that lady across the river? And the other monk turns to him and said, yes. But I left that lady at the other side of the river. You've been carrying her this entire time in your thoughts and in your mind. And think about that and let it sink in, because how many things do we carry in our brain that don't need to be carried in our brain? You've been living with this the entire week over that thing that the daughter's boyfriend who said, we're not drinking, or whatever it was he said, you've been living with that the entire week, carrying it the entire week, and he probably didn't even mean it the way that you thought he meant it. And when we look at this, go ahead, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say that goes along lines with exactly what you just said. I'm dealing with the stigma of being labeled an alcoholic because I keep relapsing. Thomas, me too, man. Yeah, but I don't care. Doesn't matter, because for me labels are nothing. I'm not going to worry about what other people think, because I absolutely can't control that. And those people that may have a negative outlook on me because of that, nothing I can do. They're the ones that have to think about that. I don't have to think about that. What I can do here is stay sober and live a good life. Be nice to people. Be kind. And was that going to change their minds? I don't know. Some people, yeah, probably. Yeah, there's, Terry's a nice guy, not an alcoholic. Terry's a nice guy, or not. Terry screwed me over back when he was drinking. And I don't like him. He's an alcoholic. Okay, well, there's nothing I can do about that except try to make amends for whatever I did, which I think I've done with most of the people. But, some people aren't going to come back. And that's important, is just don't worry about the labels. It's hard. It's hard to push them down. But for me, that's one of the, that's an important thing in sobriety is just, I call it keeping my side of the street clean. I take care of my stuff. The other side of the street, I don't have control over that. My broom doesn't go that far. So I can only clean my side. And that's what I try to do.
Yeah. And it's interesting, too, because when I got sober, I started listening to a lot of Alan Watts, which Alan Watts was not a sober person. He was part of the hippie movement, which, hippies weren't always the most sober people. And so I started listening to him, and he has this really good talk where he talks about our protection of our illusion of our identity. Okay, protection of the illusion of our identity. And I say illusion because it is an illusion. And we're seeing a lot of things change recently. And I think humanity might be taking a good step. It might be helping us realize things that we didn't realize with, gender roles and ideas of who people are and stuff like that. And whether you agree with it or don't agree with it, that's not the point. The point is it's shifting our fundamental consciousness of who we think we are. Because it was, I am a Puritan minister and I act this way. Or I am a hippie and I'm an outcast. Or I am an alcoholic and I'm a drunk. Or I'm a drunk and I like it. Or I'm a businessman. Or I'm a therapist. Or I have 6 PhDs. Or whatever it is. And we have this illusion. And Alan Watts talks about it very interesting. And he talks about kids on a playground. When you're a young kid on a playground, especially if you're a guy, back when I grew up, if a friend of yours called you a sissy, oh boy, the gloves came off. That was a hockey fight if there was ever a hockey fight, because you stand up and you say, don't you call me a sissy, I am a tough boy or man or whatever it is. And you're protecting this illusion of this identity of what a man is in society and what it means if you call me this. Like if Terry came to me one day and he's like, I think you're a pompous ass. All right? I can look at that and I could say, well, let's see if there's any merit to that. Am I pompous? Sometimes. Am I an ass? Most of the time. All right, so maybe he's right there. Okay, but now I can look at that because I remember before I got sober, someone said you're a little narcissistic. And I flew off the handle, which was evidence of my narcissism. Because if you don't have any narcissism, you wouldn't care what people thought of you. So I had to admit, well, we all have a little bit, and maybe I have a little bit more, and maybe it's for whatever reason. I grew up, my shoes were too tight, the kid called me a sissy, or whatever it is. And what I learned to do, which is very important to sobriety, and this is something I don't think we talk about enough in sobriety culture, and that is accept my humanity. And the key here, for me, because people talk about higher power. Oh, I don't want to submit to a higher power. I don't want a higher power. I'm just, I don't want no God stuff. That's fine, because I didn't want that either. Not the way they thought it was, because I knew who God was. You weren't going to tell me. I know everything. I knew everything when I got sober, and then I got sober and figured out I didn't know jack shit. And now I know nothing, but apparently people like to hear my ramblings. So we'll continue on. But I had to look at that and say, well, the higher power that I have is accepting that it's not me. I don't know who God is, but I had to accept it wasn't me. And I think that's important, is understanding our humanity and understanding that we are the same as that kid on the playground who someone called him a sissy. You could take that and be like, what do I care what Timmy says about me? Why do I care? I don't even remember Timmy. There was a kid who embarrassed the heck out of me in high school. I was sitting there, I was having a depressed day, and he came and kicked me, and he tried to kick me in the head. And I got up and I ran away, good thing I was fast. And the teacher, I don't know what the heck was his problem, but he's like, Marcus, you go to the principal's office, you're expelled. And I'm like, I'm expelled for getting kicked in the head or suspended or whatever. For getting kicked in the head? I felt like on Beverly Hills Cop. What's the charge for getting thrown out of a moving vehicle? Jaywalking? And so I just walked off the high school campus and I never went back. I didn't go to the principal's. I was like, you guys going to get me in trouble for getting kicked and embarrassed in front of everyone. I can't tell you that kid's name. I couldn't tell you one kid's name who was in that high school. I can't even tell you the teacher's name. But I carried this for years as an embarrassment. But no one cared, right? Luckily, he never made contact. He was a terrible kicker. I do know that. He sucked at kicking. But you look at that, and it's, how long are we going to carry these things and stay drunk? And that's where our strength is. No more. I'm not going to carry it anymore. I'm not going to carry it.
Yep. Doesn't mean you have to forget it,
Nope.
but it does mean you have to move on from it. Try and move on in a positive way. Definitely. And Sprout, you're saying, he's 2 years sober and he just made an issue of me not ordering wine. And it's blown up in your mind and you're wondering maybe you need to say it to him. If you feel the need, talk to him. I've learned that communication in an honest way is hugely effective. Helps me a lot, helps them a lot, helps relationships a lot, especially with my wife, as communication is huge. We need to talk about things right away. As soon as I'm not, or either one of us are not angry. So it's usually not a good thing to talk when you're all pissed off. Step back, calm down, maybe wait till tomorrow or whatever and talk about it just in an honest way. And that always comes out better, definitely. So yeah, maybe you need to talk to him about it. But there's lots of people giving you a little advice here. But yeah, the families, the family dynamic can be a difficult thing, especially when they're drinking and you're not, and you're newly sober or whatever. It's a tough thing to deal with. And somebody mentioned baby steps. I don't know if that's exactly what they're talking about, but that's what you have to do. Just take those little baby steps. What am I going to do today on Thanksgiving to not drink and not get all frustrated and have to go get a drink? And, what are you going to do? Me, I'm going to go help a bunch of alcoholics stay sober. That's what I'm going to do. And then I can come home and not make turkey. I am not making turkey. I'm making crab stuffed lobster tails. That's what I'm making.
I'm going to Terry's house.
Sorry about that, folks. Let me turn this off.
Yeah, and I think, that's a big thing. And I think it's about time for our commercial and our Black Friday sale. So, if you want to give thanks for the Talk Sober show, you can go over to TalkSober.com, click on the big yellow button. You can sign up here and join. We have lots and lots of videos. We have 30 different letters that you can download and read. On each and every letter, we have a download prevention guide, we have a progress guide, all kinds of stuff, sobriety contract. And in each of the 30 letters, you could see here, you could click, there's a nice little video overview. You can download the letter and read it, go through it each day, which is pretty cool. Really good stuff, all about sobriety. There's a exercise for each day. Terry, literally worked his butt off. All I did was write letters, so hat is off to Terry, and he even wrote one of the letters for me when I was gone. But really good stuff. He's got exercises, he's got videos and everything to help you get and stay sober. And I like to think of it as Terry helps you understand my crazy brain. But I think it's pretty good stuff. And you could go through, there's all kinds of letters from the obsession of the mind, sober journey, the reptile brain, ideas to beat alcoholism, and all kinds of stuff. You could download the videos, read all the stuff, all kinds of stuff. It's meant to be gone through in a 1 to 30 day fashion. However, we encourage you guys to go through it as many times as you want, because it's kind of like you're going to learn new stuff and you'll be in a different place the next time you read and listen, so I think it'll help you. And if you want to say thank you for the fact that we do these shows, join the recovery class. It's what keeps us on the air here. You can go here, put your name, last name, email, put your card info. It's completely secure, $27 a month, and you can cancel at any time, right? Really good stuff you could go through and learn, and that helps us out. Now, for our Black Friday sale, for anyone who signs up today through Cyber Monday, we're going to give you a free one-on-one call with Terry. I think it's a 30-minute call. I'll try to be on the call if I can. My schedule is crazy lately, so no promises, but I'll see what I can do. Free 30-minute call to welcome you and kind of see what you're going through and everything like that. Also, if you want to do a one-off thing to help out the show and to get to know me and Terry, you can do a private sobriety call with me and Terry. That's a 1-hour call with both of us. I need to drink something, so take it over, Terry, and by something I mean coffee.
Absolutely. And Marcus was complimenting me on the program, but his letters are awesome. They really talk on a personal level, and you guys are going to relate to a lot of what he talks about, and that's they talk to you about the issues that he had going through sobriety, trying to get sober, in the middle of that damage that he caused, and then after he got sober and the issues we deal with trying to stay sober. And he shows you in a real easy way. And then what I'm trying to do is just trying to kind of give you a little bit of my perspective, and then give you some things to think about each day. So yeah, it's a great program, I think.
Absolutely. And remember, Terry and I are not doctors or trained counselors or anything. These are just the things that we've learned. And if you resonate with what you hear on the channel here, TalkSober.com, the letters are like that bigger, right? So it's a more structured plan that you can go through, which I think is really helpful. We have a lot of people who have gotten and really gotten the ideas of sobriety and the different life philosophies and stuff. And I think it's something that will really go with you throughout your day. And I would say, go through the program in the morning and at night. That way, some people were complaining about their dreams in sobriety. Well, you can, to some extent, control your dreams by what you think about before you go to bed. And if you think about sobriety, it's one of the reasons I listen to talks every day when I go to bed, because I want that to be in my head. And you can kind of really go through and really change the way you think. Which is a blessing of sobriety. You now get to choose how you think.
Yeah. And Pat Bob Law, so you said it's really hard when you've lost your family and live alone to get sober. Well, it can be, but I know a lot of people that live alone, and I was alone on some Thanksgivings, especially that first one. And you can get sober, you can stay sober. I think more in line is it can be difficult for anyone to get sober, but once you decide and once you start taking those small little steps, you can do it. Anybody can do it. I mean, I
Absolutely.
was hopeless. I almost died. I got sober. And I know a lot of people that were in worse situations than me, and they were able to get sober, and they still live alone. And they just do certain things. Same with you, Ben. You're recently sober, and you're alone today too. And you're not really alone. Definitely, we have people we can reach out to. You can reach out to
Absolutely.
us. If you're not in our Facebook group, by the way, reach out to us. I probably won't get on there till later tonight, but I'll check it out and say hi or comment on anybody that wants to comment. But if you're not on there, just ask to be approved. I'll approve you, and you can share some of your thoughts. There's lots of good stuff on there.
And you could do that by going to TalkSober.com, click on join the Facebook group. There's lots of resources. Going forward, I want you guys to really get in the habit of TalkSober.com because we have all kinds of stuff to help you get and stay sober. Facebook group, some of the letters are there. And definitely join the recovery class. We're going to have a lot of new stuff throughout the rest of the year and the new year because we want to do this more full time and have more interaction. We're going to be adding some private calls for members only. That way you guys can interact with us once a week in a more private setting where you can share stuff that you don't want, like live on YouTube, right? Because some of us don't want that. And you want to be able to share. And you could type still. You could be audio if you want. I would advise just not doing video. I don't even think we have it enabled where you could do video on those because, there'd be a lot of videos to watch while you're trying to pay attention. But you could stay anonymous is what I'm trying to say.
Right on.
Trek says, how you doing with the cigars? I think I'm 4 months off of them, 3 months, something like that. Yeah, I don't miss them. I missed them like a couple of times, but yeah, nah. So yeah. Why try to stay sober when it feels like I'm dying? Go to the doctor. If you feel like you're dying, you need to go to the doctor. Like that's what you need to do. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. There might be a bigger issue. So yeah, but sobriety, I mean, I remember I felt terrible drinking. I feel great in sobriety. So.
I felt like I was dying when I was trying to get sober, and I did not feel good for the first couple of months. But the reason why I stayed sober, even though it felt like I was dying, is because I knew I was going to feel better. I started to believe what other people that were sober were telling me, and did I really believe it? I didn't quite believe it, but I saw that they seemed to be pretty happy. So maybe there was some truth to that, and that's kind of what it took for me is just kind of having a little bit of belief that just maybe, if I don't have to drink, I might start to feel better, and I did, and it took some time, but it did. And as Grim just said, feelings pass, and I feel wonderful today for the most part. Yes, I have days where I don't feel so great. Of course, that's life. But pretty much the worst day sober is better than the best day when I was drunk. So that's why.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, I think we're about out of time unless there's any super pressing issues. Does anyone have anything that is super pressing? While we wait for that, hop on over to TalkSober.com, join the recovery class, click the big yellow button. That's your way of saying thanks for doing these shows, keeping us on the air. I'm kind of kicking myself because I want to do a lot more with the sobriety thing, with the sobriety channel and Talk Sober and all that. I haven't had a lot of time to. We really want to do a whole lot more and reach a lot more people. And the way we're going to do that is by you guys joining and telling us what you think of the program and helping us out. And again, remember, it's less than $1 a day, which is less than a cheap domestic drink, which, we've had plenty of those. So if you guys can and do want to help us out and get all that stuff, we don't want you to just donate. We want you guys to get a bunch of stuff and, get on the path to sobriety and everything like that. And I think it'll help you quite a bit. So TalkSober.com, sign up using the yellow button. You'll just fill this form out here. You'll get instant access. Keep an eye on your members area because we're going to be adding to it all the time. And if you do want to do a private sobriety call, because I know some people are like, I don't want to commit to a monthly thing, just do a one-time sobriety call. A lot of people have found those extremely helpful, and I like it because we get to meet some of you guys and understand what you're going through. And again, that's like a Zoom call where it's just you, Terry, and myself, and we're just hanging out for an hour talking about sobriety. So they're pretty cool.
Right on.
All right. All right, guys, have a good one. TalkSober.com. Happy Thanksgiving. See you next time.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.